Good morning, everybody. As you can see, my face is a little lighter this morning. Got tired of combing food out of it after every meal, but good to be with you today. We're starting something I can say for the first time in what feels like forever. We're starting a new book in the Bible. Genesis was wonderful, wasn't it? Many great stories. Love the book of Genesis, but after 50 chapters, I was ready for a little change of pace. I don't know about you. And particularly the book of Exodus, it's one of my favorites because the Ten Commandments, the movie, that's one of my favorite all-time movies, and where they get the vast majority of that is from this, at least the first half of this book. So let's dive into the Exodus. This is somebody riding a motorcycle. If you'll remember, we left off, Joseph died. He made them promise to take his bones out. He kind of prophesied, you're going to be here, but one of these days you're coming out. And here's how the story begins. Now these are the names of the children of Israel, which came into Egypt. Every man in his household came with Jacob. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceeding mighty. And the land was filled with them. So it started out with just 70. Remember, they went in the land of Goshen, the best of the land, because that's where the king that loved Joseph told them to go. Now they've been, fruitful and multiplied, and Joseph and his whole crew's died off, and that king that loved Joseph, he's now dead and gone too, and that's where the plot kind of thickens, so to speak, here. He says, Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there fall out any war, they join also unto our enemies, and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. So this guy, he don't know Joseph. All he sees is a bunch of people everywhere that are not Egyptians. And, as a king, he's got to be thinking about his kingdom, and he's afraid they'll join to some other bunch where there'll be a war fallout. So here's what he does. He makes them slaves. I'll spoil it for you. He says, Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. So he makes slaves out of them. If we can't do nothing with them, we'll just work them to death and get something out of it for ourselves, I guess. But he says, you remember how God was with Joseph? And, he was with him in the pit, in the prison, in the palace. He's with these people too, because that's his people. He says, But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. All their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah. And he said, When you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then you shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. So that would be a pretty grievous thing to be asked, wouldn't it? I don't know what he expected to kill them on the way out and make it look like they were born dead or what, but watch what the midwives do. It says, The midwives feared God, and did not as the king of Egypt commanded, but saved the men children alive. Reminds me of after Jesus resurrected and left, and the apostles are trying to fulfill the commission. They're out preaching in the name of Jesus, healing people. And remember, they bring them in and say, You do not teach in this man's name anymore. But Peter says, we ought to follow God rather than men. And that's what these midwives are doing, and they get blessed for it. Even though they kind of tell a big tale here, but they still get blessed by God because they're following God and not men. Sometimes you just know the right thing to do. You don't even have to know something about the Bible. Sometimes you just know in your heart what the right thing to do is, and God will bless you for it. It says, The king of Egypt called for the midwives, after he sees clearly they're not killing them. He says to them, Why have you done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, they are lively, and they are delivered ere the midwives can even get there. You know, before they come in, they've already delivered them, and you can't rightly just go take the baby out of their arms and kill them. Of course, they were making that up, but it says, therefore God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared God, that he made them houses. So he blessed them with houses. It says, and at this point, this is the end of the chapter, but Pharaoh's fed up. He's taking matters into his own hand here. He says, Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born you shall cast into the river, and every daughter you shall save alive. So it ain't looking good for the Hebrew boys at the moment, but we're going to see something miraculous take place in the next chapter. So show up tomorrow, and we'll see all about it. God bless every one of you.